All right, here we go. All right, welcome everyone to Actifio On-Tech. Today is Thursday, February 7th. Very excited. I'm Jay, and I have two new partners in crime today, and we're operating without a producer. It's very scary, I have to say.
Feels fresh.
You want to introduce yourself,
Sure.
guys?
My name's Adam Kerwin. I lead the inside sales team here at Actifio.
Awesome.
My name is Patrick O'Neill. I'm one of the account reps out of the Northeast.
And Pat, I would have to say, has recently been promoted. Congratulations. Good for you. Well deserved. He's crushed it. So, as we're here today, the first thing we need to talk about, of course, is our beer. The beer that we're having is a bit of a repeat, and it is Trillium Brewing Pom Pom. Now, the interesting thing about Pom Pom is it's one of my favorites. It's a very sweet, sort of almost like a dessert kind of beer. And I liked it so much when I first had it that I thought, I'm going to keep drinking this. Yeah. And then I found out it was a limited release. Uh-oh. So it is no longer available. But thanks to a few colleagues of mine, specifically Jason, I have a few extra cans.
Wow.
So we are going to sample my favorite Pom Pom. It is a very sort of dark stout, a milk stout, if you will, that is, I find, quite delicious, and I'd love for you guys to give your feedback. But while I'm pouring, one of you guys want to grab one of these things that we printed out here and give me your thoughts?
So the first article that we have talks about how Texas has launched a no-cost solar program.
I can't say I can understand that, because how does one... There's a cost to solar cells.
Well, especially coming out of Texas, which happens to be the largest producer of energy in the States. So good for them for looking at potential green opportunities for energy.
I find it curious, though, because there is a significant cost to solar cells. They're not inexpensive. People I know who've purchased them, I have not myself, but we're talking $40,000, like a lot of money.
It takes around 10 plus years to earn your money back. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So how you give it to someone for free is a bit hard for me to fathom, although I do like the idea. But it's interesting. And then in some states, believe it or not, like in Hawaii, as I recall, they were discouraging use of solar.
Interesting.
And the reason why is there was so much of it, and it was such a great climate for it, that is potentially impacting the use of traditional power plants and things. So I like the idea of solar, but it's just interesting.
Yeah, my only thought on that would be it could be a program where you put the solar on your house and distribute the energy to surrounding areas, to your neighbors, something along those lines.
I see this as a hook, right?
Yeah.
There's hey, we'll give you something for free, but by the way, there's going to be some sort of drip cost that comes down back to us. True. Whether that's a maintenance program or something like to that effect. So it's great for free energy, but nothing's free in this world.
Deceiving type.
Fair enough.
Yes.
So funny story about that. So I was at a company one time, and they had a benefit of these solar people who came in, and so they said, we are going to assess your house for solar power and tell you if you're good and maybe give you a special deal.
Yep.
I thought, great idea. Why not? Let's look at it. I'd not tried the budget for it, but I figured I would look. So I naturally gave them my address. Yep. They punched in my house. Now, the only thing to know about my house is I happen to live in a kind of rural area with lots of big trees. They looked at my house and said, you know what? Your house looks great. It's pointing in just the right direction. It's going to be fantastic. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, but there's one problem. And I said, well, what's that? See all those trees? You gotta go cut all those down, and then it'll work perfectly. Like, that just seems very wrong to me, right?
And then you find out the solar company has like a side business in tree removal. Yeah.
So I thought that was very curious, and needless to say, I've not put in solar. Although I think the idea is a good one. I have a neighbor who does, and it's been great for him. Yeah. So, all right, well, let's try the beer. Tell me, guys, what you think.
All right, let's do it.
It has the dessert.
I know.
Reminds me of dessert.
Creamy and like sweet.
It's like vanilla-y almost.
It's good. I like it a lot, actually. Sad that it's only limited edition.
I know, it is. And they even released one called, I didn't try it, called, this is Pom Pom? Yeah. Pom Pom Pom. So triple Pom. I don't know. They had one here. I didn't try it, but I don't know.
I feel like this is definitely a beer you have one or two of.
Yes.
And then your palate explodes and you try to move on to something different.
Well, here's the irony of that. So I have one of these at home, and one night I was thinking, I'm going to drink it. Even one can got to be a little heavy for me after a while. I like having, just this is perfect for me, a nice tasting of it.
Absolutely.
It can get a little heavy. Yes. So, anyone here know what a raspberry pie is?
I mean, I could venture a guess that it's a pie with raspberries, but I have a feeling that maybe that's
it is not going to.
Yes. So what a raspberry pi is this computer developed by people in the UK for students to learn about programming. Okay. So it's the size of a credit card, and it basically runs a full Linux environment. And so people love it because you can use this to run like a web server or an email or whatever you want. You can do almost anything with it. And the key thing about it is it's cheap. Inexpensive is the right term.
Yep.
$30 or something.
Wow.
And it consumes virtually no power. And so you can basically have tons of these things doing, smart houses or web servers or whatever. So the interesting thing is that, you think of these stores like the Microsoft store or the Apple store, where it's these big show places, right? Where these big companies want to sell you all this stuff. Well, I thought it was very interesting that the Raspberry Pi organization, this nonprofit, opened their own Raspberry Pi store in Cambridge in the UK to sort of highlight Raspberry Pi, which seems almost counter to sort of the idea of being inexpensive, sort of not for big dollar gain, sort of for greater community value. So what do you think?
Going against their word. They're going against their word.
It feels like it's a little different than what you'd expect.
Well, capitalism takes over at some point. I mean, so from my perspective is, non-for-profit is tough to leverage and grow in terms of investing in technology and change and stuff like that. So, what if they're using the funds to put back in the product and make the product better and spread it out and make it more useful to more people. So, I mean, capitalism, in my personal opinion, is never a bad thing, but obviously. I have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
So.
And when you see the success of the Apple Store and the Microsoft Store, where customer interaction with their products, opening up a store even for brand recognition purposes, if you're new, is a great idea.
Right.
But it still goes against their word. But with Adam said, they could take their profits and put it back into the product.
Hopefully they will. Yeah. I actually own about 4 or 5 of them. I love them. Yeah. Like, they're great. You can do all kinds of random things with them.
Nice.
So, how many people here use Waze?
Every day.
Absolutely.
So do I. Every day. I know exactly where I'm going, but I still use it.
Exactly.
So the interesting story about Waze is this week, the New York Police Department issued a cease and desist to Waze because the Waze system was listing sort of checkpoints where they stop you to check if you're drinking. And so, while I think the idea of checking if you're drinking is a very important one because we want to avoid drunk driving, it's interesting that they released the cease and desist to try to prevent Waze from doing this, with the theory that by doing this they basically indirectly enable drunk drivers because they'll know where the thing is, so they will somehow avoid it.
I mean, so I don't know how constitutionally you want the conversation to go, but I would assume I would venture a comment that checkpoints are not constitutional. So I don't know. It's a kind of a very pointed conversation topic, but I don't know. I just think that's a way for them to just push an agenda that they're trying to accomplish. And
those are strong words. No,
I don't know. I know.
I go there.
I was kind of looking off and stuff,
but wow.
So hackers.
I know. Okay. So what do you think, Pat?
I mean, there's so many other alternatives. Like, you could spend $10 to $20 on an Uber, So, but I think that checkpoints are needed.
Yeah.
But, there's other alternatives like Waze and Uber where that dramatically cuts down on the drunk driving.
Right.
So I think, if you're willing to take that risk, then I think they should have the checkpoints to get you.
It's hard, though, because it is sort of one could argue it's sort of a freedom of speech thing. That if I want to report a police officer because he's trying to capture speeders, then why can't I? That's freedom of speech in theory. but I can understand on the flip side, to your point, Pat, I think that if someone is drinking and is doing bad things, and those people should absolutely be whatever we can do to stop them, because it could hurt someone. That's really terrible. But can you really control? Can you really tell ways what they can or cannot say? Is that now impinging on freedom of speech? Like, I don't know. It's very hard.
Yeah, I think that's the question, right? I think, and I think it's also been proven that checkpoints are not. They don't actually stop people from drinking and driving, and they don't deter people from doing that type of behavior. So I think that there are investments in other areas that I mean, Uber is a great one, right? I mean, I think people, if you look at statistics and the amount of drunk driving damage, whether it be property or to people, has dropped exponentially with the introduction to Uber. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I think you could probably guess my opinion on checkpoints, but as a point of the conversation, I think that I think that it's a freedom of speech thing, and I think to tell people what they can and can't do and how they can leverage technology, I think it's hard. It opens it up to other things, right? When they can start telling you what technology you can and cannot use, and how you leverage personal information.
Leads down a whole different path,
right?
Exactly. For sure, yeah.
Okay, so my next thing is, how many, I don't want to delve too deeply into personal things related to sort of passwords, but the ideal scenario is that you have a separate password for every single site and application that you use on the internet. And my guess is that most people do not do that. And so, what do you guys think? Is that something that is manageable?
I can barely remember that.
I know.
Yeah. I don't want to tell you how many.
I know, but I agree. I'm with you.
So I think what these days we have face recognition, which I think you're seeing in a lot more apps, especially the financial applications and stuff like that you download on your phone and whatnot. I think facial recognition, is sort of steering us in the direction where hopefully we don't have to memorize multiple passwords, but. I mean, I'm not that old, but to memorize 15 different passwords is ridiculous.
They do have apps that can randomly generate a password for you each time that you log in, but I might have the same password for all my social media platforms, but when it comes to banking and stuff like that, that's when I get a little more complicated.
Well, the other problem with that is that then you wonder, okay, well, if this application that's generating all my passwords is sort of hacked, where all of it lives, then it becomes the central point of risk if someone could hack that. So the reason why I raise this is that the latest news is that someone, we always hear about these stories about hacking, someone has theoretically gone out and gotten a lot of these different hacked databases and merged them into one. And so there's a mega leak of 2.2 billion records circulating inside the dark web or wherever it is. But somewhere, hackers have access to these 2.2 billion records, which is an interesting thing. And then you wonder, well, is there a way for me to search? Like maybe some honest person will use that, put it somewhere online and give your information or something.
Yeah.
In fact, there was another thing I saw this week, not even on here, which is I think a cool idea, that Google released a plugin for Chrome, and that when you go somewhere and put in your information, it'll tell you if you are one of the accounts that at some point has been part of an attack.
Nice.
So it will give you some guidance like, hey, you might want to change your password here because you go to site A and site A was in the news and you're logging in. So that's actually something I've been thinking about, only just because it's good to sort of know. Like I would like to know.
Yes. Yeah, my credit card company has like a, I think it's an additional fee, but it pulls you into an identity theft sort of program or whatever where, I'm not sure if it searches based off of social security number or whatever it is, but it has come back and told me on some occasions that, there's potential risk here or there.
That's
or something
cool.
like that. So, yeah, as technology becomes and grows and grows and grows, as it's sort of expanding every single day, security is definitely a huge focus area, right? Because data is the new oil, right? It's you know, companies are starting to leverage data in different and strategic ways. Yeah. Personal data is very important to people, and it opens us up to risk, both as corporations and as individuals. So, finding ways to protect that data, I think, is a huge priority.
Yeah, and I think people who are less familiar with social media as well, where you know, hackers will send out an email to mass amounts of people that looks identical to, we could say, Facebook login, for example, and will say, put in your information or banking information as well, and then it's out there.
I have a true story about this from today, Pat, just on this exact topic. I every once in a while go into the spam folder. I'm just curious about what came in. In my spam folder was an email from some random email address saying, Jay, can you give me give me your phone number so I can call you or text you because I have a really pressing issue. Signed, Ashutosh.
I got that
and it says underneath, sent from my iPhone. And if you're not paying attention, it looked very authentic. It really did. And if you're not thinking about this stuff, you might be like, oh my gosh, the CEO, he needs me.
What's wrong?
Quick, Ash, help me. And you know what? Quote Ash would say, right? Give me your phone number, give me your credentials, because I'm locked out. Maybe you can help me out. And inevitably, what happens is, if you do that, you're going to be in trouble.
I've run into the IRS scam where I've been called or emailed, and they say that they're from the IRS and I did something wrong with my taxes, and it's important that I get right back to them.
Of course.
And then you open, I click down and you see, oh, it's some random Gmail address, and I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Caught myself a couple times where I freak out initially, and then I relax a little bit.
But you see the videos on YouTube where they request hundreds of dollars on gift cards from people.
Totally. And the thing you worry about is, I don't worry as much about us because we have been trained, hopefully, to think about this and not fall for it. But there are plenty of people on different generations, particularly the older generation, like my mom or my wife's mom, those kinds of people who may not have thought through all of these different nuances and trouble that could happen.
Right.
And so you worry about them because they're the people who can be really taken advantage of. And it's really sad to me that you're preying on these people.
Yeah, it's kind of deplorable in my mind. Right?
Yeah, it really is deplorable. Yeah. Although there used to be sites, and I'm not sure you've done these, where the guys who decide they're going to get back at them, and so basically they just spend hours, waste hours of these scammers' time, and they're like, can you hold this sign up for me? And it's like, I'm a tool or something, right? And it's like, wait, I don't understand. Can you help me? And it's really funny, actually. I find that amusing, only because it's just wasting these people's time, and theoretically that's time they're not spending scamming other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are the best videos.
I know, I love those. I love those. All right, so I have one more here. So, either you guys deal with honeybees? I have people I know who like honeybees and raise them and things.
My father used to have over a dozen hives.
Really?
Yeah, it actually, so I'm not sure exactly where the article is going, but I mean, if anybody who follows honeybees or knows anything about bees in general is that when the honeybees go away, it is not a good situation for humans. So but it's kind of a cool process. He didn't do it my whole life, but for the past probably 6 years, he's had hives in our hometown and multiple different locations. The farm across town, his parents' house, the house I grew up in. So yeah,
I know people who have them, and they swear by them. They love them, and they think it's a fantastic thing. And I think it's great, because I agree with you. You really need them to sort of, pollinate and help things grow. So it's fantastic. But I mean, it becomes like almost an attachment to them. Like they're sort of like your thing. And then sometimes, this happened to a friend of mine, like they escape. So they're in their hive, and somehow the queen kind of escapes, and they all just follow. So they end up being this big ball of bees in like a random tree. They have to go put their gear on and go bring them back to. I don't know if your father had to deal with that.
So they're all over the property. They end up in the pool, and typically, you get a bug in the pool, you get in the net and you throw it out. Yeah. These are like, they're somewhat more important than your average bee. So they actually put in little ramps in the pool, like little. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. Little floating ramps, so that when the bees fell in the pool and they couldn't get out, they had something to climb out on.
I like it. Well, there you go. So this is very fitting for that. So there was a study done, and it was done, I think, in the UK. And they basically had bees come into this thing that was shaped like a Y. So they come in one end, and then when they show up, they get to look at sort of these patterns that are sort of related to math. And so they're like, oh, if it's 2 of these stars and 1 of these diamonds, then you either go to the one that has the side that has the 1 versus the side that has the 2. Yep. So theoretically, right, it comes in, there's 2 choices. It either goes the left leg or the right leg. So theoretically, right, if it's statistically random, the bee that comes in, 50% should go and 50% should go the other way. So half the time they're right, half the time they're wrong. Well, no. 65% of the time they got it right. So the article is suggesting that bees can do math. That maybe they understand. Maybe your dad is right. Maybe these are brilliant bees.
What's the sample size?
Sample size is 10.
14 bees undergoing 4 tests of 10 choices. I'm not sure what that means, but so not a massive sample size, I would say.
I wonder. See a bigger sample size.
Fair. But there you go. So that's interesting. Could bees be more intelligent than perhaps we originally thought?
I mean, anything is possible. Anything is possible, but I think it's highly unlikely. But who knows? Who knows? I mean,
certainly your dad feels attached.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's a great thing. That's a great thing. People I know do that. All right, so that is what we have today. It's a bit of an abbreviated on tech due to, as I mentioned, a large vacation factor, although we are hardcore and we're here.
No vacation.
We're enjoying our Pom Pom.
It was delicious.
I know, it was delicious.
Very good.
It was very good. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Of course. Thank everyone for attending. We are now going to sign off. And as I do that, I need to step back because, again, we have no producer. But thank you, Adam. Thank you, Pat, for filling in for Jason. And Chris was also away and a variety of other folks. So it's awesome to have you guys.
Yeah. It was a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thanks. Jay. See you, everyone. And you guys just hanging out staring at the camera randomly while I hit stop.